All right, so I want to talk today. You may see this up here, Ruthless. Now, that's a strange title to talk about on Mother's Day, when it's supposed to be about love and encouraging and flowers. And why would you talk about Ruthless? Well, I'm going to tell you why. A lot of times when you hear about the book of Ruth, you don't really hear about Ruth and Naomi. It's only about who? Boaz. Nobody said nothing about that. When you talk about the book of Ruth, I don't ever really hear anybody talk about the relationship of Ruth and Naomi. I hear everybody talk about the Boaz and how to get your Boaz and who Boaz is and Boaz. But you don't ever hear anybody talk about really the relationship of Naomi and Ruth. So I was like, I want to talk about that today. So Naomi was married to Elimelech. They lived in Bethlehem, Judah. They had 2 sons. And they went to live in Moab, where the 2 sons married 2 Moabite women, Orpah, not Oprah, Orpah and Ruth. And then 10 years later, Naomi's husband and 2 sons passed away. So that left Naomi, Orpah, and Ruth all widows. Naomi told Orpah and Ruth, go home, go back to your country, go back to your land. There's nothing here for us. If I could birth children, I would, but would you wait for them for however long in order for you to be able to marry them again? So immediately I stopped right there. Because today, as a focus on mothers, so many of us, we start questioning, am I a good mother? I started questioning, am I a good mother? You start comparing yourself to other people. You start looking at other people. You know, this mom's she's got the schedules all done, all the kids. You know, she kisses them every night before she goes to bed. She says all the prayers with them. She does this. We all start comparing ourselves as mothers, as wives. Am I good enough? Am I smart enough? This is kind of the moment where Naomi was with Ruth and Orpah. She didn't have her husband anymore. He passed away. Some of us in this place right now, and this is going for men and for women, something in your life has possibly died, someone, something, and it has left you in a place of feeling discouraged, feeling like you're alone, feeling like you're not worth anything, feeling like what I was worth passed away, so now who am I? We may not talk about it, but that's how we feel. Naomi expressed herself that way to Orpah and Ruth by saying, just go back to your country. She didn't get into all of that, I feel this, but she made the statement of just go back home because that means I have nothing else here to offer you. How many of us have felt like that or we even feel that way now? I feel that way a lot as a mother. I feel like, okay, my kids are this age, my husband, am I really doing a good job? Am I really leading my family in the way that I should be leading my family? Am I doing everything, or have we come to that place of where we're like, you know what, there's nothing else I can offer you? Some of us who are older, you feel like my time has passed. The sun has set on my time here, and there's nothing else for me to do, that you feel like there's no value. We may not talk about it with each other, but these are things that go on, the issues of our hearts as women. That we don't want to confess to one another, because then that means that we're weak and we're not a woman in authority. But we are in the authority of God, but there are also situations and things that are going to come in our lives that we're going to have to rise above, that we're going to have to confront, that we're going to have to talk about with people, that we're going to have to face reality of, you're still here on this earth. Even though Naomi's husband passed away, she still had a lot to give Orpah and Ruth. But Orpah said, okay, well, I'll give you a hug and kiss. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to where I came from. But Ruth made the decision and said, you know what? I'm going to stay here. Now, this is where things get interesting for me, because Ruth and them, she heard, back home that things were going good, that they were providing for the people that were poor and all of this, so they were going to go back home. Now, this is what was interesting. Now, where did they come from? They came from Judah. What is Judah? Thank you. They came from a place of praise and went to Moab. Things happened. Something died when they left the place of praise. Some of y'all have left your place of praise, and then something died. But do you know what happened with Naomi? What she did? She went back to that place of praise. I wish I had somebody. Where's my doom? Right there. I need it right there. It's coming. Thank you, Jesus. They left the place of praise. Something died. They ended up going back to their place of praise. That's what we have to realize. A lot of times when stuff dies and stuff, go back to that place of praise where you could praise your God, where you can get your mind focused and get off of the thing that happened of the enemy making you feel like you weren't good enough, that you're not worthy enough, that you're not this, that you're not that, and go back to the place where it says you are. That you have to go back and remind yourself of the things that God said you are. So Ruth made a decision to stay with Naomi. And the thing that I realized here was, as I was studying and looking it up, it was saying Moab and Israelites, they are enemies. How about that? That these people who are not supposed to like each other, that they ended up being on this journey together because of their pains together of what they went through. A lot of time as women, we don't like each other because, oh, she thinks she's better than me. Oh, who she thinks her hair looks better than me. Oh, she got that dude. Oh, it's all. But a lot of times we have the same pain, but we're making ourselves like we're enemies. Why are you an enemy of the woman sitting next to you? Why are you an enemy of the woman who's at your job? You're both in the same place. So was Naomi and Ruth. They were in the same place. They were enemies, but Ruth said, no, I'm not. There's something about you that I'm going to stick here. Ruth said, where you go, I'm going to go. It's like the Chris Tomlin song, where you go, I'll go. Where you move, I'll move. I'm going to follow you up until death. Until God separates us, I'm going to stay right here with you. I want to encourage the seasoned women of the house. The sun has not set on your time. God is calling you right now for such a time as this because there are lots of Orpahs and Ruths who have experienced things that they need your guidance and they need your experience in life right now. They need you to help take them back to that place of praise where they might have lost it somewhere along the way. Amen. It's interesting because Naomi means pleasant in the Bible, but she told everybody, my name is going to be Mara, which means sorrow, bitter. That she's naming herself something that God did not call her. Some of you are speaking those things, bitterness and sorrow, over your situation when that's not what God called it in the first place. He's called your situation joyous. He's called your situation peaceful. But because you don't like the way maybe something might have gone or had to leave out of the situation, that you're calling it bitter and sorrow, and God's saying that's not what I called it to be. That we have to get ourselves again back to that place of praise, that we recognize what God is trying to do in our lives. Once we have somebody else in our life, because a lot of times we want to isolate ourselves when something's passed away, or we don't want to get ourselves back into the game of things, that we forget that we still have things within us, our life experience, that we're able to pour into somebody else. That we're able to mentor. When I was younger, I used to always tell my mom, and I'd say to my sister, I don't want no kids. I am not having children. Watch. I am not having kids. I am not having children. Fast forward, 3 kids later. There's something that shifts. So maybe somebody will say something about this later. It's almost selfish to say that you don't want to pour into somebody else. Do you know the richness that is inside of you? Do you know the life experience that is on the inside of you that you're denying other people, that you're denying another young woman, that you're denying even another young male that needs a mother? It's not about you birthed that person. It's about they need your tenderness. They need your affection. They need your love. It's not about you came out of me, so that's the only reason why I'm going to care about you. Something shifted even within myself of having that motherly instinct to want to care for my children. Is that instinct in you that somebody who's not even your child sees something in you and says, you know what, I want to follow you? A lot of times we don't want to be bothered because we've raised our children, we've gone on, we've gotten older, and we say, you know what, that's my time is past on that. I don't want to do that anymore. But there is such a hungry generation out there right now of so many young girls. Their identity is in twerking and this and that and smoking and everything else. And you have so much richness of God on the inside of you. Naomi was able to guide Ruth to her Boaz. Which goes to this thing of stay committed to the field that God has placed you in. If you go back and look at Ruth, it says that she was in her field and they said Boaz told her, stay planted right where you are. That's a tough word. Stay planted. Stay committed. That's one of those words. Some people I've had a conversation with, those are those trigger words that people don't like to hear because that means that's a responsibility, that's an accountability. That means I'm going to have to stick here through the rough time when it's not so good. I'm going to have to be here when it's hot outside and gleaning with all this wheat and the barley. And it's going to be when somebody's getting on my nerves, I'm still going to have to stay here. When there's only 5 people out here and I got to double up on some work, or when there's 500 and all of a sudden I feel like I don't need to do nothing. What did Ruth do? She stayed committed. Which brings me to a sidebar. Stay committed to the field that God has put you in. That's right. That's right. Stay committed and watch what happens, because, a lot of people focus on the Boaz, but Boaz was a byproduct of Ruth's commitment and her stick-to-itiveness. 1 Corinthians 7:20 talks about grow where you're planted. People aren't growing because they're not planted. You're following some of everybody, but you're not following who God has knitted you to. Oh, man. People think the bigger the better, but sometimes the smaller, the more success that you're going to have, because it's a more focused time. This is where Ruth and Naomi were able to have that time, and she was able to listen to her and really hear what she was saying. Instead of going back home to what was comfortable, she stayed with somebody who was supposed to be her enemy, who people knew, y'all ain't supposed to be together, that she's older, she's younger. There were so many things that were different between them, but her blessing came because she decided to be committed to where she was, and because of that small voice that said, you need to stay with her. Is that small voice in you saying, you better not leave Rocket Nations? You better not do it. Don't do it. I'm not looking at anybody. I'm looking back here. I'm looking at Derek coming in the door. I'm not even looking at anybody in here. I'm saying this to encourage you. There's a lot of times, even at our women's group that we had last month, the one is this month on Tuesday, May 29th, just so you know. Woo! It was awesome. It was awesome. And I was sharing with the ladies, I said, you know what? Y'all know I cry, so whatever, get past the tears. I said, you know what? It's like a lot of times I'll talk to myself. I'll be like, Megan, self. I talk to myself all the time. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I talk myself through it. And I said to the ladies, I'm like, you know what? When I'm here as a pastor, I have no clue what I'm doing. No clue. But you know what? I'm going to be obedient to God. Because there's something that's in me that I may not see right now, that God is using me when my unknowingness to be able to minister to the women in this house. Even if I haven't been through everything that you've been through, there's an encouragement I know that I have. I can give you a hug that I know will change your life. I'm going to patent them, call them the Megan hugs. But I know, just like Naomi, she felt like she had nothing to offer anymore. But there was something in her that she was able to reach Ruth and guide her to where it was that she needed to be, that they both were blessed by the end of the story. So what is it within you? When you stay planted in the house that you're called to, when you stay planted in the field that you're called to, When you link up with that enemy, talk to your enemy. What is it that they don't like about you? There's probably something that they're hurting about that you'll be able to talk to them about. Ruth and Naomi experienced the same thing, and they were able to talk to each other and move on with their lives. Ruth's name was Vision of Beauty. Did you know that we all are a vision of beauty? The title why I called this Ruthless was because what happens when we don't have Ruth? You know what Ruth was for Naomi? Ruth was Naomi's hope. So you might as almost well change that first part and call it hopeless without the Ruth. Some of us, without that person in our lives, we feel like we're hopeless. But God wants to bring and is going to bring somebody into your life. Jesus. He's going to bring some other person into your life that's going to help restore that hope and help encourage you. And and I get about church and I get about, all that thing, but there is somebody else and there is something deep within you that God's going to bring someone into your life to be able to tap into that part to be able to minister to them. That's going to be your tag along. That's going to be your Ruth. I think a lot of times with Ruthless, Reckless, Relentless, everybody has their quarrels about the Reckless love song because they have such a negative connotation. That's how we use them all the time, is that it's relentless, it's reckless, that you don't care, that you don't this, that you don't that. But those words are actually very powerful. That means that you've come to that place in your life that you don't care what people think, that you actually do have hope. I have hope, but it's focused in another way. It's not on you and what you think. It's about what God has for me, and it's about where God is taking me. So it may come off ruthless and reckless to you, but it actually is purposed, and it's full of hope. One of the things that I was telling Vince that I wanted to have happen today, that I, just in my spirit, because I feel like there's something in the atmosphere in here, like that's kind of, I just sense it in my spirit, of almost like we're just barely making it through. Like I barely got myself here today. I barely got myself dressed to make it here today because so much has gone on throughout my week. So much has come at me throughout this week that I'm just here. That I don't really know what in the world God is telling me to do, what God wants me to do. Today I'm just here. My kids want to take me out to dinner and I don't know, but I still feel like there's some emptiness, like something has died. And you're waiting to get back to that place of praise. Is that you? Do you feel like you're hopeless? Do you feel like you're helpless? Do you feel like, God, why me? I don't know what else to do anymore. I feel like nobody wants to listen to me. I feel like, God, like you don't hear me. That's the only place that we're going to have breakthrough. We can sing breakthrough all day long. But until we're actually real with ourselves, with that person we see in the mirror and make up our faces and get ourselves all prettied up, and that's the only way that we're going to have any kind of breakthrough and be able to be hopeful. and be able to draw the Ruths to us. We come in week after week after week after week after week after week, get our little gas tank filled up a little bit more, and then we're spent all week long. And we've never actually addressed the issue. As women, we wear so many hats. We're wives, we're mothers, we're this, we're that, we got to clean the home, we're janitors, we're cooks, we're this, we're daycare specialists, we're teachers, we're doing some of everything. But are we having our time of being back in that land of praise? Men too, where are you at in your life? Have you made yourself available to somebody else who's younger than you, who's just with you in the field where you work at? I know this isn't a shout message today. It's a reflective message. Because it made me have to think about some stuff within myself. And really say, God, I want you to do a great work in me. I want to be transparent. That I'm not putting on airs for somebody. That I'm not going to stand up here and act like I have it all together. That I'm willing to cry and say that I don't know. That I'm willing to cry and say, you know what, today I had a really bad day. But I know that God is still good. And I'm still going to be here and be available, even through my sadness, that God's still going to use me and encourage me to encourage somebody else. So being ruthless doesn't mean that you're nasty, that you're a witch to people. That means that you have your focus is set on God and it's not on people, because there's something greater. There's a Boaz, there's a blessing on the end of whatever it is that God is trying to get you to. But when you don't let your situation of what you've lost, God, let us not focus on the loss, but let us focus on the gain. Some of us are still stuck in 20 years ago when something passed away, when somebody passed away. Some of us are still stuck when somebody passed away. They have passed away, but we are still stuck. They are not here. If they were here, they wouldn't want you to live the way that you're living. I'm sure Ruth, Orpah, Naomi, their husbands would not want them to be stuck where they are. He would say, move on with your life. Because there is great work here for you all to do, for all of us as women. As we celebrate this Mother's Day, it's about looking at somebody else as another mother, at another woman, not hating on them.